Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe they can do what they want, when they want, and nobody else matters. And in today's episode, you'll hear stories about entitled military Karen wives. We've got Karens using their husband's ranks to cut in line, get discounts, steal from people. It's absolutely head-shaking. Guys, I hope you enjoy the stories. Hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and as always, you can send or link your stories to this email right here. Let's dive in. So this is actually something that happened to me over 20 years ago, but for some reason it just popped into my head. Maybe because Christmas season's coming up and I had to share it with you. When my husband was stationed at an Air Force base along the Gulf Coast, I worked in the layaway/customer service/catalog order department at the back of the base exchange. I had been there about a year at this point. I was very well liked by both my coworkers and supervisors. Usually in this department, it's a kind of walk in and get what you need, as it's not usually a super busy department. However, beginning not long after Halloween and onto the new year, it gets horribly busy, and at that point, it's required everybody pulls a number from a ticket dispenser at the entryway to the department. Once the holiday season began, this was absolutely a hard, fast rule, no matter what. One weekend day, we were wall to wall with people, and from the moment we opened the registers, we were busy. It got so bad that we had to call a couple of people over from other departments for the sole purpose of ringing through layaways. I was at the register that was doing payments only on layaways. I'm waiting on a customer when I happen to glance up and see a woman walk through the entryway, and she comes straight to my register. No number, nothing. She just walks straight up to me and she interrupts me with the customer I was assisting. The woman says, "Hey, you need to help me immediately. I'm in a rush and I can't wait very long." I just say to her, "Ma'am, while I can appreciate that, everyone here has somewhere else they'd like to be. If you would just grab a number, then..." And this is when the woman interrupts me and she says, "I don't have time for that. I just said to you that I don't have time. You need to assist me now." At this point, I'd finished up with the customer I was helping, and I turned to click the now being served sign, which was now serving number 75. So I call out, "Next customer, number 75, please." Hearing me say that, Karen now turns purple. She's so mad. And she says, "Excuse me. Do you not see me standing right here? You need to help me right now. Do you know who my husband is?" I just let her know, unless he's number 75, it doesn't matter. Now, as if this isn't enough of a mic drop, this is where it really gets good. The woman's now raging, and she demands to speak with my manager. And I'm thinking, fair enough, let's go get her from the back. So I walk to the back, and I give the manager the gist of what's happening. I tell the manager, "Mary, this customer walked in, she didn't take a number, came to my register, and she demanded I take care of her ahead of a couple of dozen customers who patiently waited. I asked her to pull a number, but she refused. And then she asked me if I knew who her husband was. I should tell you that I told her unless he was number 75, it doesn't matter." So Mary comes out to the registers and she walks up to the woman and says, "Ma'am, I'm this employee's supervisor and she tells me you'd like to speak with me." Karen begins her tirade and she says, "Yes, this rude employee." And this is when my supervisor holds up her hand and she cuts off Karen and says, "Ma'am, I'd love to help you right this second, but as you can see, we're really busy. If you could just pull a number, I'll speak with you when it's your turn." At that, Mary turns around and she walked back to the back. Now, I wish I could describe the range of emotions this Karen experienced before she finally turns around and left in a huge huff. And then, to add insult to injury, just as the woman was departing, another customer, I have no idea who, said loud enough for the room to hear, "Get back to us when your husband's more than a lieutenant." Best customer service day ever. I absolutely love OP's response and how the manager dealt with it. Unless your husband is the next number, he's irrelevant here. Like, I'm surprised Karen could talk after that was dropped on her. And this person shares a similar experience, and they say, "Admiral's wife just in front of me in the endless payday commissary line 35 years ago. She and I were just chatting when a woman pushed her cart through the line up to the front. And yes, there were many protests, and yes, the young lady uttered the dreaded words. She said, 'But my husband is so-and-so.' The Admiral's wife then loudly proclaims, in a moment forever frozen in my memory, "You've got the same job as the rest of us, sweetheart. You're effing a sailor." End of the lines back there. Absolutely savage response. Okay, so my sister is a total Karen, and she's not a good mom. She's always been selfish, and she should have never had kids. But she did, and she's a terrible helicopter parent. When my nephew, who we'll call Jacob, graduated high school, I asked him to move in with me and my wife to attend college. He couldn't stay home anymore. It wasn't healthy for him, and thankfully, he agreed. The problem was, he faltered when he got here. No clue what he wanted to be or do. He had no clear direction. So he quit school, wrecked his car, and after 2 years of him living in my basement, I finally told him he needs to figure out his life. I recommended the military, and he ran with it by joining the army. I was thrilled, but his mom was not. She was mad at me for encouraging him to join, and always claimed he'd never make it. We got into a fight about it, and I told her she should support him, and she said she was. She was supporting him by trying to make him quit the military, as he's, quote, not cut out for it. But she was wrong. Fast forward to his graduation from boot camp. We all travel to humid as F Oklahoma, and the first thing I notice my sister wearing is an Army Mom t-shirt. Now I thought that was stupid, since she never once supported him at all, but I kept my mouth shut. The entire trip, she boasted how great her son is, how she's so dang proud that he joined the military, and how he's making a difference for our country, unlike some people's kids who play video games all day and amount to nothing. My wife and I had sore eyeballs from rolling them so much. On our last night there, we planned to have a big dinner with my nephew to say goodbye. Just as we're heading to the restaurant, he called to say he wasn't coming. Someone had been caught doing something wrong, and to punish him, they decided that every single person would stay on base that night. Well, my sister Karen was like, oh, hell no. And she argues with Jacob. Jacob was like, I can't do anything about it, Mom. This is how it works. When they got off the phone, she gets up, looked at us, and said, I have a call to make. When she came back inside, she was smiling. She says to everyone, well, I took care of that. Nobody tells my son what to do. Let's get in the car so we can meet Jacob for dinner. The entire family was of course shocked. I said, what? I thought he was stuck on base. Aren't all of them being punished? And this is when Karen says, well, he was, but I called his sergeant and I bitched at him. I told him it was unfair for all of us to fly all the way here and have him say I can't see my son. Nobody punishes my son. I'm just shocked, and I said, you did what? Karen says, I didn't do anything. I said that Jacob didn't do anything wrong. Why is he being punished? It's punishing me. I paid a lot to fly here, so I should be able to see him. And he agreed. He said Jacob could meet us for dinner. I just let her know he's gonna pay for that. You have to know that. They're letting him go now, but once he gets back to base, that's a different issue he's gotta deal with. That wasn't okay. This isn't high school, it's real life. And everyone is gonna know you called and did this. She just replies, so? He'll be fine. He's a big boy. And what can they do to him? I'm here and I want to see him, so I'm going to see him. We just all stared at her, jaws on the floor. She had no idea how much she had just screwed her son over by doing what she did. I tried to explain that Jacob isn't Jacob anymore. He's part of something bigger, and when one's punished, they may all pay a price. She said that doesn't matter to her. That was something he'd have to figure out on his own. And as an adult, he's gotta learn to face the consequences. And with that, off we went to dinner. And dinner was of course awkward. Jacob didn't talk much and he looked distracted. I whispered and said I was sorry about the phone call. And he just said he doesn't want to talk about it. I then asked if he would have issues once he got back on base that night. And he just said yes. He said he was the only one they let leave, and everyone saw it. When I tried to ask for the details, he refused to give them. A few weeks later, he again refused to say what happened after we left. But he said he paid for his mom's call in more ways than one, and that she should have never resorted to name calling. I felt terrible, and I still do. He doesn't deserve a crappy mom like my sister. F her. Oh my goodness gracious, guys, that poor kid. Like, calling your son's commanding officer is one thing, but bitching at the guy and resorting to name calling, like, I can't even begin to imagine what went on when Jacob got back to base. I would have refused to leave the base, to be honest, but it might not have been up to Jacob. This person says, I don't think at the time he would have a choice. I've seen in boot camp, when a commanding officer punishes someone like this, they will march them out to the gate in front of everyone. I grew up on a base and already he's effed. First, her calling the commanding officer is bad stuff right there. He's gonna gun for you until graduation. Second, the troopers are gonna harass the guy who effed up their leave time. And third, this looks bad when you're aiming to get something. I've seen so many airmen with their wives effing up their career. They just badmouth a commanding officer, not knowing they're talking to them, and they kill their husband's chances of promotion or pay raises. This mom is one of those parents that could damage a career. Do not let her contact any more commanding officers. So this isn't my story, but one of my friends. This happened a long time ago, and some names and details have been changed to protect the innocent. So my friend, who I'll call Lucy, lives in a town with a pretty good-sized army base. To make some money between semesters of college, Lucy took a summer job as a waitress at a local restaurant that's popular with the officers and their families. Lucy's also liked as a waitress, to the point that patrons will be asked to be seated in her section. But you're not here for that story, are you? You're here for the entitled people, and oh boy, did Karen not disappoint. It was a Friday evening, so it was packed. There's at least an hour wait, the kitchen zipping, and Lucy and her coworkers are on their toes. Fortunately, it's mostly regulars, so they're patient and even leaving nice tips and paying compliments to the waitstaff and the owner. When enters Karen. Karen, who Lucy had never seen before, was seated in Lucy's section, and she begins the usual Karen tirades, complaining about the wait, sending her food back a total of 3 times, husband's rank name-dropping, yada yada yada. Lucy, easily the most patient and kind-hearted person I've ever met, was getting frustrated. And this is when the bombshell dropped. Like most places in town, the restaurant offers a military discount. However, thanks to this being abused in the past, people wanting the military discount must show their military ID in order to qualify. There are signs posted on the doors and the menu stating this. Most patrons are understanding of this, but as you can guess, Karen's not one of those people. So Karen asked for the military discount, and it's time for the check. And Lucy, as polite as ever, asked for Karen's military ID. Hearing that, Karen's shocked, and she says, "What did you say?" Lucy tells her, "Can you please present your military ID for the discount?" Karen says, "No. Don't you know who I am? I'm a regular, and my husband is." Lucy interrupts her and says, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but company rules state that your ID must be shown to get the discount." Karen goes on and says, "Are you calling me a liar? You don't think I'm entitled to a military discount? You think I'm actually lying." Lucy tells Karen, "No, I'm not calling you a liar at all. But ma'am, in order to qualify for the discount, you must show your military ID." Karen, of course, is not listening. She says, "My husband is Kyle so-and-so. He's 2nd lieutenant at the army base, and he knows people." Lucy's trying to keep her cool, but she told me that she wanted to cry because Karen was yelling so hard at her. Karen says, "I know people. I can make sure you never get a job in this town again. So give me the discount." By this point, everyone's silent, and even the owner's coming over. An older woman from another section, who Lucy's never seen before either, gets up and comes over. The woman, who I'll call Belle, taps Karen on the shoulder. Karen stops her tirade, whips around, her face turning 50 shades of red and purple, just stares Belle down and says, "What do you want?" Belle, keeping calm, says, "You are going to apologize to this young lady. You will then pay in full and leave a tip." Karen says, "Who are you to tell me what to do?" Belle just responds with, "I'm someone who can make things very difficult for your husband." At this point, Karen basically loses it and she screams, "I don't have to stand for this." She then grabs her purse and leaves, saying, "I'll tell so many people just how much this place sucks, and nobody will want to come here anymore." Karen then storms off, pushing the owner aside hard enough for him to fall to the ground, and then she left. According to Lucy, it was so silent that you could hear a pin drop for at least a minute. Belle makes sure the owner's okay and then turns to Lucy and asks, "Are you okay?" Lucy, still shaken, tells her, "Thank you, I'm okay." Belle then said to her, "I'd like to apologize on behalf of the base. That was completely uncalled for." She then turns to the owner and says, "I'd also like to pay for the meal and add a tip as an apology." The owner tells her, "There's no need, ma'am." But Belle insists, and in the end, the owner accepts it. Belle then returns to her seat, and the night continues. Belle and her husband came by to check on Lucy before leaving, and promised to come back for dinner next Friday. It wasn't until Monday afternoon when Kyle, Karen's husband, went to the restaurant to apologize to Lucy. And here's what happened. It turns out that Belle was the Major General who had just been posted to the base. That morning, Belle had him summoned to her office for a little chat, and because it happened off base, he was mortified, and he offered to reimburse Belle for the check and tip. He was then told that his wife's behavior can and will make things difficult for his career if she continues on with what she's doing, and what she's done has already been noted. He made sure Karen got a verbal torn up one side and down the other on the phone when he was done. In this town, gossip spreads faster than the flu. Word spread that Kyle ended the relationship with Karen not too soon after that. Karen never darkened the door of the restaurant again. The rest of the town made sure Karen knew she wasn't welcome. Belle kept her word, and she showed up every Friday evening for dinner with her husband. According to Lucy, she was a classy lady, and even if she didn't sit in Lucy's section, she would make sure to tell Lucy hello and leave her a nice tip. Guys, what a fallout that was. Like, honestly, I didn't expect that reading this, Karen's relationship would end. Like, that must have been the straw that broke the camel's back. And also, Karen's lucky the restaurant owner didn't press charges. And this is a prime example of what not to do, and I'm glad she got knocked off her high horse. With that said though, I could not help but laugh when Karen was being that entitled over her husband's second lieutenant rank. And guys, I'm not saying that to knock her husband at all. Like, I mean no offense when I say that. It's more the fact that the way she was acting, you'd think her husband was the highest rank there. And this person shares their comment, and they say, "My first husband was a Marine. On base, there's a commissary. It's just a huge grocery store, and only military and their families can shop there. Prices are lower than the store in town, and you don't pay tax. Every service member gets paid the same day. I learned to wait a couple of days before I went shopping, but there were some days where we were out of everything and I had to go on payday. The lines got ridiculously long, curving around the entire store. One day, some woman starts pushing her way to the front of the line, loudly bragging that her husband was a master sergeant and outranked all of ours, so she deserved to go first. And this is when a woman at the back comes up and she starts telling her off. This was almost 10 years ago, so I don't remember the exact dialogue, but she was basically reaming her for wearing her husband's rank, saying that her husband earned that rank, not hers, and she wasn't entitled to anything. Furthermore, the grocery store lines had nothing to do with rank, and even if her husband was here, she'd still have to wait. This is when Karen comes back with, "I don't know who you think you are, but my husband can destroy your husband's life. Don't mess with me." This is when the woman says to Karen, "Oh, you mean a master sergeant outranks the base general? I'll have to let my husband know that he has a new boss. What's your husband's name?" Hearing that, Karen kind of went pale and she just walked to the back of the line. You see, military members are responsible for the behavior of their families, and her husband could have faced disciplinary action. She knew this, but she didn't expect anyone to question a master sergeant's wife. Before we begin, here's some background. I live across the street from base housing. My husband and I decided to buy our own house instead of living there, but we're still close enough to utilize their parks. Now to the story. The base housing has a little park every block or less. Honestly, it's a ridiculous amount of parks. We normally go to the one closest to our house, but since it's been snowing, we decided to go to one further away because it has better hills. My oldest, who's 4, was bundled up tight, and he was using his sled down the hill and then hiking back up. At one point in time, he got distracted and he left the sled, at which point another child jumps on it and he was playing with it. That was fine. This is when my son decides that he wanted to hike back up and went to get his sled. Now, it's important to know that I'm wearing my youngest, who's 3 months, and because of that, it's unsafe for me to go down the hill just in case I fall. I couldn't hear what my oldest was saying to the other child, but eventually, he got his sled back and he was dragging it up the hill. And then enters Karen. My son's up the hill now, walking towards me to push him down, when he's stopped by Karen. I see Karen reaching for the sled, and my son very audibly says, "No, I used my words." And I want to note that we're teaching him to use his words instead of hitting when he's frustrated. Karen reaches for the sled again as I'm walking up. I say, "Excuse me, can I help you?" Karen says, "Is this your child?" I tell her, "Yes, he is." Again, "Can I help you?" This is when Karen says, "Your child stole this from mine. I watched him." I tell Karen, "That's his sled. I bought it last Christmas. Your child was playing with it for a while, and then mine wanted it back." Karen says, "No, my child was playing with the sled, and yours took it." I tell her, "I watched everything that happened. Yes, your child was playing with my son's sled, and then my son used his words and took it back." This is when Karen says, "I've never seen you before. Are you even supposed to be here? You know this park is restricted, right? It's military only." I tell Karen I'm well within my rights to utilize this park. I then grab my son, the sled, and go to walk away. But that would be way too easy, right? Karen then grabs the sled from my son's hand and she turns around. And this is when I say, "Excuse me, bitch, do not take things from my child. Who do you think you are?" Karen says, "What did you say to me?" I tell her, "Give him the sled back. I'm not playing right now." And this is when Karen says, "Do you know who I am? My husband is insert military rank, and you can't speak to me that way." I tell her, "Congratulations, your husband's rank has absolutely nothing to do with you stealing from my child." I then yanked the sled back and picked up my toddler. Keep in mind, I'm still wearing my youngest, and I went to walk away. Karen then grabs for the sled again, causing me to lose my footing. And thank goodness I didn't fall because I probably would have had to hit her head. I tell Karen, "Look, your husband has nothing to do with my husband's career, but your actions have everything to do with his. You keep this up and I'll get the MPs involved. Touch me or either of my children or the sled again, and I will put you on your ass. I'm not playing this game anymore. What you did just put both my children in danger. So walk away." Karen just says, "You're threatening me? Who do you think you are? I will report this. I've never even seen you here before. You don't belong here." I just hit back with, "You've never seen me because I work for a living. I don't give a crap about what your kid hears. I'm walking away. Touch me again and I will not hesitate to hurt you." Karen was yelling more as I walked away, then proceeded to glare at us until my son got cold and we went to walk back. I've heard of these types of people before, but I can't believe I encountered one in the wild. I have dealt with my fair share of entitled people, but trying to steal from a 4-year-old and endangering a 3-month-old, that's a new low for me. I went to talk to my husband and he's pretty pissed, more so than me. I gave the description of Karen to my husband and 2 coworkers who are also spouses. So right now, we have 3 different people asking around to see if we can find the name of the woman and therefore find the husband. A lot of people were asking their rank. They're both in E5. And that's part of what puzzles me. This lady's husband might be an instructor, but he isn't a chief, an officer, or even related to my husband's job. Yeah, some people take it to the extreme, guys. Like, what was that Karen expecting OP to do? Just give up her child's property? All because her husband might be a higher rank than OP's? And seriously, I can't help but to think how often she power trips on others in the community. But hey, that's entitled people for you. Not everyone's kind and humble, like the woman in the last post whose husband was a general. Okay, so I don't know if I'm really the a-hole here, but I do think it's a bad situation, so bear with me. This happened 2 days ago. I'm a female, 25, and my boyfriend's 29 in the military. We've been dating for 6 months, and we live in different towns. He comes over to visit on weekends, but I've never been to his hometown, and whenever I try, he's always busy. With that said, he came over to spend the weekend with me, and he brought his military uniform. He was in the shower, and his uniform was sitting on the bed. I felt bored, and I decided to put it on and took a picture of me wearing it. I then shared it on my Facebook as my story. I thought nothing of it. But once he found out, he blew up, and he starts yelling at me, saying I never should have touched his work stuff. I was baffled at his reaction, and I said I was just trying it on, but he said I was being reckless towards his work. When he found out that I posted a picture of me in it, he lost it completely. He told me that he can't believe I jeopardized his job for stupid giggles and for some internet likes. He then kept mumbling that I screwed him over because the uniform had his name tag on it. I asked, so what? And he said that I don't get to F with his job and sabotage it with how I was acting. We had a fight, and he grabbed his stuff and went back to his hometown, after demanding I take the picture down and wipe it off my phone. So am I the a-hole? I think I might have messed up, but a part of me says that this was an overreaction on his part. So yeah, I'm sharing this, guys, because a lot of people are saying that OP is the a-hole in this situation. This person comments, you are the a-hole. I'm a veteran here, and he can get into a lot of trouble for that. That uniform isn't for you to play dress up. He's not overreacting. You're being disrespectful. Not to mention, you could cost him his job, and yes, it's that serious. And this person comments, dude, he got pissed because he has a wife. The military has a strict dress code, but they really hate adultery. And this is what it's really about. Guys, let me know your thoughts though. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our /entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed today's stories. If you did, hit that thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing so you don't miss these crazy stories. And if you missed the last episode on the channel, it's in our /malicious compliance, where bosses are getting absolutely destroyed. Go check it out if you haven't. And myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.